to the Secrets of College Planning. I'm your host, Anthony Uva, and today we're going to get some insight into college public opinion. My guest today is Dr. Lee Miringoff, and he's the director of the Marist College Institute of Public Opinion. Welcome to the show.
Hey, welcome back to Marist, Anthony.
Yeah, thank you. So usually I start my guests where they went to college. So where'd you go to school?
Well, I did my undergraduate at Clark University in Worcester, Massachusetts, where it rained every Monday. It was we called it Worcestering. And so I majored in government and economics at Clark, and I did my doctorate at MIT in Cambridge.
Wow,
where I was surrounded by a lot of Boston Red Sox fans, which, although the Marist colors are Red Sox colors, suffice it to say, that's not my team.
So let's go back in time.
Sure.
When did you start thinking about college? Was it freshman year of high school, senior year of high school? When did it all start for you?
My brother was 6 years older than me, so I had actually visited colleges when he was at school, and then also my mom was an administrator at Vassar College, so I sort of grew up with college stuff around me. So I think I always was sort of knew I was going to go to college, and I guess the key thing was to, what kind of school, the geography. My father used to say I could go anywhere where it would take no longer than 3 hours for a pork chop to defrost in my mother's freezer when she took it out. So I put that down at about 180 miles as a circumference.
That's good. So you end up going to Clark.
Yeah.
What's it like? How's the school, and what's it about?
Interestingly, when I went to Clark, it was a little bit like Marist when I came to Marist after, several years after that. And I thought it was very interesting. For an undergraduate, I think that size really matters. You don't necessarily, from my way of thinking, I didn't want a huge university at that point to do my eventual research. I wanted to be in small classes, get to know my faculty. I think the opportunity to get to know 3 or 4 faculty really well while you're an undergraduate, to me, makes all the difference.
Sure.
And I think that's what Clark provided. And I think in some ways Marist does the same. I don't remember way back when now all the midterms I took and the papers I wrote, but I do remember those faculty who had an impact on me. Yeah. And I think if you have 3, 4, 5 faculty who make an impact on you, that you get to understand their way of thinking, their perspectives. You learn to be more of a critical thinker in your own right. And the facts, now you Google them now, and you got another way of getting all those kind of information.
Yeah. So you graduate from there.
Yep.
You go to MIT.
Yep. And that's the big university for the advanced degree. And if people want to go on to that, well, then you have the resources and the size and the faculty and other things that you might want to do more, research PhD projects.
So now, how do you go from MIT to becoming the director of Institute of Public Opinion here at Marist?
Well, oddly enough, I grew up in Poughkeepsie. I was actually born in Poughkeepsie, which is already puts me kind of like in a category unto myself. So my family was here. They're originally from New York City, but because of job things, my parents moved up here actually in the late 40s. And I grew up in Poughkeepsie, although I must say it was a very different town back then. It was sort of a mixture of cows and computers. We had agrarian and IBM, and that was sort of the whole thing. And New York City was really a trip. Now, New York City seems to be a lot closer because there's so much more. It hasn't moved, but it's gotten a lot closer in terms of the social interactions and the like. So students here at Marist really can avail themselves through internships and just weekend stuff to get to the city. But so I was already familiar with Marist and familiar with Poughkeepsie, and there was fortunately an opening in political science, which is what my academic training is, and I was able to apply for that and taught courses. Some courses I never even had as a student, but you learn fast. You never work harder than you do as a new faculty member. Those are 4 hours of preparation.
So this is your first job out of college?
It's my first job out of college, and I will admit that I've been here 42 years. Wow. I count the time I've been in Marist in blocks of 4. So I go freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, and I give myself 1 degree. Then I go again. So right now I'm a sophomore, and I've got 10 BAs put away. So I think at some point I'm going to ask for an honorary degree, but I'm not quite there yet.
Wow. So let's get into public opinion.
Sure.
So how does it all work at the Marist College Institute?
Yeah, the Marist Institute for Public Opinion started in 1978. So I was, did the initiation of that program, and it grew out of a course I was teaching in elections and voting behavior. And it was actually suggested by a student that if we're doing this, why don't we do a poll and so that group organized, the class itself organized over 100 students, and on election day there was a local county executive race, and we scattered those kids all over Dutchess County, which is where Marist is, Poughkeepsie. And everything was hand tallied. This is the Stone Ages. We hand tallied during the day, and then we went on a local radio station and with students and analyzed the results as they came in. And the odd thing was the outcome was a very surprise for this area, but it's what our poll showed. And I think at that point the Marist Poll was born.
Wow.
And we really just took it from there way back when, 40 years ago. So it grew from students, and it's always been an educational program of the college. It has a huge public relations benefit. So we partner now, fast forward 40 years, with NBC and the Wall Street Journal and NPR and PBS. And so people who may have heard of the Marist Poll, part of the reason for that is because we have you do polling on elections, you're independent, you're accurate, you have a great track record. People,
and then you send it to them.
And then they use it, and it's in this day and age of social media, it goes out. In the old days, we used to send things through snail mail. We used to send our reports over to the copy center, and then they would probably mimeograph them for all I know back then. It looks a little differently now, but it's always been an educational program, and so there are coursework, internships. We have lecturers come on campus from the world of media, politics, and polling. Right now, this semester, we're doing a course on 1968, the year that rocked, 50 years ago, the year that rocked American politics. Yeah. And we're bringing in people, great media people from, who've been scholars on Vietnam and civil rights and the elections during that time, which were such a year of upheaval for society. And so I try to mix what students are polling on with what the outside world of journalism and politics is also dealing with. So and then we take kids up to New Hampshire for the presidential primary, and they go right on the ground, and so they see it up close and personal, and we stop in and we meet with Chuck Todd and Meet the Press, because he's our partner with NBC. Yeah. And so we want the students to have a front row seat at Marist to what's going on in the world of politics.
So is it just majority is polling just on the elections, or is it polling for like all different things?
Well, we do elections as sort of our bread and butter, but we cover everything from is there life in outer space, and if there is it smarter than here on Earth? It's sort of what we call, for the older folks listening, our E.T. versus Einstein poll. So we got to get a sense of that. We do sports. We just did one on baseball opening day. Questions on whether the netting, people are happy with the netting being expanded. We do that with Brian Gumbel's Real Sports program on HBO, so we partner with them to do that. We do New Year's Eve resolutions. We even do my birthday. I started when I was 39 years old, asking one question in the spring: do you consider 39 to be young, middle-aged, or old?
Wow.
And I thought that was kind of fun.
Yeah.
It was fun then, but it's changed.
I bet.
But now I'm stuck. I got to do it every year. And so the numbers aren't bad, particularly among those people who are 80 or over. They think someone in their 60s, not so bad. But the millennials, they've had it with me, I'll tell you. But so we do a lot of issue polling. So the economy, approval ratings of elected officials, healthcare, the job picture, education. So we're into public policy issues, but the stuff that attracts a lot of attention is who's going to win and who's going to lose and by how much.
Yeah. So this past election, I guess, was a big one.
Yes.
With Hillary and Donald Trump.
And there was a confusion over what the polls did. The polls actually were accurate on that. We had Hillary ahead by 1 point in their national poll among the popular vote. She won by 2, so that was fine. But there was a whole new group of folks showed up, and they were these prognosticators from 538 and YouGov and all these, Huffington Post, and they were sort of doing their models. They would take polls and they put their own special sauce on them, and they came up with, there's a 96% chance Hillary Clinton was going to win. And people were really thrown by that. And the conclusion was that somehow the polls were wrong. The polls were fine. It's what happened to them once we sent them out the door. And it got very confusing. People were surprised, not the people who were doing the polls as much as the media and the people who were doing these prognostications. It's hard to communicate uncertainty to a broad audience.
Sure.
We know I say tomorrow is a 50% chance of rain, you know what that means. And if it rains or doesn't, it's not a big deal. If I tell you there's a 98% chance that Hillary Clinton is going to get elected and Donald Trump wins, then you're going to say, what's that about?
Yeah.
And so, that's where the problem lied.
Yeah. Now, how about the students? How do they get involved in the public opinion?
That's great.
What do they do to get involved?
Well, we have an army of students. They're from all majors. You don't come to Marist College because you want to be the next George Gallup or something. You come to Marist College for well-rounded education that prepares you for important jobs in the workplace, or to go on to graduate school if you like, or law school, what have you. So that was. The students we attract very often their freshman year. We actually contact them before they come on campus after they've agreed to come to Marist. And the interviewing itself, they get trained. It's a professional, state-of-the-art phoning center that we have in the Hancock building, on a new building on campus, 3, 4, 5 years old now. 7, 8, 9 years old. I'm not very good with numbers. I'm not supposed to say that, but I'm within the margin of error, perhaps. But they so they get trained. They usually work on 1 evening a week. They get paid for that part. It's not the coursework or the internships or these seminars with outside speakers that we have, but this is the actual phone room. This is the boiler room. And the students are, as I say, from all majors. I would say they're probably students who, it's not for everyone, because it's hard. It's hard work and it has to be done precisely. And we have the more advanced students supervise the freshman and sophomore students. We have about 250 students in the project at any one time, and they work 1 night a week, as I said. And the best thing I do from a faculty standpoint is when I see a junior or senior giving feedback to a freshman or sophomore about, because they're listening into the interviews, about what they did, the good things, areas of improvement, and ending also with some positive feedback. I think that's what prepares students for life after college, because no matter what job they're going to be in, they have to be either in a supervisory capacity or they're going to be getting feedback. And to do that as an undergraduate is a special opportunity. And I might add, I get feedback from a lot of students. And one thing they say is, we learn to talk. Now, I think students think they know to talk when they come here, but they really get used to handling questions and fielding information and that interaction. And over the course of their 4 years with us, they really, in a sense, come to a job interview, and boy, they're good.
So is it really phone work that they're doing,
they're on
or
the
is
phones.
it social media
Well,
work?
we do a little bit more of that, and we're going to be setting up a whole newsroom where we're going to have the dissemination of the information, which will be much more social media than we do at the moment. We do a podcast currently called Poll Hub, and that's a weekly production that we put together. But the students are involved in collecting the information by phone, talking to people, and then involved in questionnaire writing, the collection of the data, picking of the samples, the people we interview, supervising, as I said. We have about 20 students who are our core group who help organize all of this. So it's a professional, look, NBC and the Wall Street Journal would not be associated with us if they thought this was a bunch of kids making phone calls.
Right.
It's the farthest thing from that.
So now, is there cost credits for it as well?
Well, you can, from the coursework, we provide courses in political communication, public opinion and politics, survey research. Those are all regular courses as part of the political science curriculum, and those are open to all students. But the polling itself, and I like to stress this, is that we have students from all majors who do the interviewing. For some, it's just a job on campus.
Yeah,
It's maybe the hardest job. It's also the highest paying student job on campus. So there's a trade-off there. But it's also, I think students who, it's not for everyone, but for those students who latch on to this is sort of like another home at Marist. It's a place they get to meet our staff, many of whom are alums of the college, so they interact. We have a network of people who've gotten jobs, so when you come to me and say, I'd like to work in Washington, well, I've got people down there who graduated maybe within the last 5 years who are eager to show you around because someone else showed them around. So the ladder has to be there. We always tell our students, you never pull up the ladder. The ladder's always there for the next generation.
Sure, and your contacts with NBC and those are all there.
And that's all for internships and job possibilities. I mean, there's a little Marist community out there in media, but also in nonprofit organizations and in businesses too, because business marketing is a whole field within itself that also uses the same technology and similar approach. So when students come through the Marist Poll, they're also going to be learning about the private sector world of surveys and public opinion.
So who comes up with the questions? Do you write the questions? Do the students write the questions?
They come from a variety of sources. It's student suggestions. Very often the things that we've asked in the past become trend, so we will repeat those almost like as a given. And then also the media clients. I mean, it's great to have the people at NBC and the Wall Street Journal saying, hey, why don't we ask about this? Because they're the ones who are in the newsrooms down there on a daily basis. So look, right now in Washington, the news is changing by the hour.
Right.
And to have those folks and also the people at NPR and PBS, who we also partner with, to have those professionals in Washington relating to Marist College students about the survey we're going to collect and the data we're going to put together, well, that's really kind of like, that's sort of the real thing. It's like playing, if you're an NCAA baseball team, but you're actually playing at Yankee Stadium and you're pitching, but the catcher is Sanchez of the Yankees. It's the real deal.
So how about the polls themselves? Is it just the Poughkeepsie area? Or
no, these are national. These are national. We do two types of polling primarily. One is national, and then the other are statewide. So if it's a presidential election, we do the Iowa caucus, then we do the New Hampshire primary, then we go to wherever the presidential map goes, we go with it. Right here from Poughkeepsie. So and so that's where that is. This year will be the midterm elections, so there'll be some key Senate races. Maybe some governorships that we want to be following. Probably more Senate than not, because it's so critical who takes the majority in the Senate and the House of Representatives. And we'll probably be following, 6 to 10 of those races, and they could be anywhere right now. We're going to interact with our sponsors, our media partners, to see which states we think and they think are important. And interestingly, it's sort of very often a like mind. So, that one looks good. This race in Texas, I wonder if Cruz can hold on, or is Texas turning a little blue or something? And we that's the kind of stuff. And again,
and that's why they work nights, because you have the West Coast. Do you do also Hawaii, Alaska as well?
No one actually polls. If you look in the fine print, it always says the 48 states.
Really?
Because of the time zone changes. So when you hear any poll of Americans, it's actually 48 states. So it hasn't been updated really to include that. But yes, we start in the East Coast and we work our way through the Central, the Midwest, and end up in the Pacific.
Now, from the 70s until now, have you seen the classes growing at leaps and bounds?
Yeah. Well, Marist has. So I mean, this was a we were talking before the program. I mean, the building we're in right now with this great studio. When I came to Marist, it was an outdoor, natural-fed swimming pool. And this was the northern end of campus. And right now, the northern end, this almost is like the middle of campus. We grew a little bit to the south. We grew a lot across Route 9 to the east, but we really grew to the north. So Marist has just grown in leaps and bounds, and there's a huge advantage to that. because if you build a building, let's say in the last 5 years, you wire that building for the latest in technology and computer stuff, and like our studio, our office area has a TV studio as well, unlike this one, and we're connected, fiber optic connection into New York City, and we can broadcast also from our offices at the Marist Poll to anywhere in the world live or on tape. But I'm saying, and part of that is because the building has been built in the last, did I say 4 years, 6 years, 8 years? Recently, I think it was actually 2010.
So do you get a lot of celebrity or personalities that come to Marist and talk to the students?
Oh yeah, we get a lot, and also at graduation, because we had we've had some wonderful speakers who we've had. The late Tim Russert, who was spoke and did a wonderful job, and very often political folks. And the people who come to Marist, I think if you do watch those Sunday talk shows and you see people, kind of like the commentators, those are people who Marist students will go, yeah, that one was in my class 2 weeks ago. So, someone like Amy Walter on PBS, who does the NewsHour with Judy Woodruff. Judy Woodruff herself was up here and did her graduation one year. Chuck Todd, a lot of the news folks, Jake Tapper, the folks you see on TV doing the news or doing political analysis. I've also made Marist a stopping off point in this semester. E.J. Dion of the Washington Post, Bob Herbert, who used to be a columnist for the New York Times, Jeff Greenfield, and Lynn Novick, who did the PBS Vietnam special with Ken Burns. She's going to come up and talk to our students about the PBS special on Vietnam that she just did last fall on Ken Burns. So I mean, you're getting it from the real folks.
Now, do you get a lot of the alumni from the school to come back and talk to the students as well?
In fact, this week, Chris McCann, who was an interviewer for us way back when, his hair was very different than it is now. Of course, so's mine. But he and his brother put together 1-800-Flowers.
Wow.
I argue with him, I'm not sure convincingly, that he learned the power of telephone at the Marist Poll, which he then converted into 1-800-Flowers. He kids me along that was the source of it. I'm not so sure, but it's
a good one.
So he comes up, and there's a lot of alums who, the ones who are particularly, I mean, those are a bigger name person, but the ones who also are the ones who are 23 years old, 24 years old, a production assistant at CNN who now will invite to have a current student come down, give them the tour.
Sure.
Show how the internship worked, how they got an entry-level job. I mean, that's got to be part of what we're providing for students because that's the experience. We have to be able to ensure people are paying a lot of money to go to college, and there's got to be the value added of knowing your faculty. I was just at an event, a breakfast, and this guy came up to me. He's a banker, and I recognized his voice before I recognized him. And he said, Don Namath. And I said, Don, yeah. Wow, you were in the original polling class. This happened this week. He said, yeah, 1980. Wow. And I said, wow. And he said, and he remembers going to he was actually in the group that went to the local radio station afterwards when we talked about the results. And it became part of it. So now he gets to see the Marist Poll grow up as he's grown up.
Sure.
And it's all one and the same. So it all feeds itself.
Being that the Marist Poll was the originator.
Yes.
You see a lot of other university polls.
Yes.
Does Marist have some kind of insight on those schools growing their polls?
Well, yeah. There are a lot of college polls now. We were the first to use undergraduate students in this capacity. And we're probably one of the few still who focuses on the education of the students and the experiences while they're here, not just doing a poll and getting the headline. Yeah. There are a lot of colleges that do that. And there are a lot of colleges, interestingly, who've done the polling because their presidents used to be vice presidents at Marist. So they said, I'm going to get me one of them things. The difference at Marist is you really get to do the forums, the seminars, the internships, the coursework. It's not just dialing for information, dialing being the old-fashioned word.
Sure, sure. So basically, the students are getting classwork.
Yep.
Do you get students from other majors
Oh yeah,
coming in
absolutely.
and doing that?
And a lot of communication majors will do because they might be interested in journalism, for
Okay.
example. And then you get students. We have students who somebody wants to do biomedicine, and that's part of research. I mean, it's a similar theory to collecting information, and they're interested in taking a course in survey research, so they can learn about how to read data and better understand it. That's not for the freshmen and the sophomores, but certainly for the upper class folks. And there's a lot of, I mean, I go around the class. I do two things in the beginning of the semester. I ask students, obviously their name, but what their major is. Two things. What's their major is, where they're from, and the second thing is, my counting is very off time. And the third thing is, what they want to be when they grow up, which freshmen obviously don't have as big a handle on that very often, and that's totally cool. Right. Because this should be like a candy store. You go in and you pick what you want. You learn. I mean, that's what this should be about. And the students we get, I'm finding different things. That the majors and the career aspirations are very different, and also at Marist, where they're from. It's a much more diverse ethnically, much more diverse racially, more diverse geographically. This is a very, very interesting college because it's been so dynamic and because it's changed and it's grown, and there's a sense of in an organization, I guess I'll go to a sports analogy. If you're kind of like the underdog, but then you make it to the championship, boy, that's even sweeter.
That's right. Well, we're coming to the end of our show.
Okay, so quick.
And usually I ask my guests, what advice do you want to give to the families out there, the students are interested in coming to Marist? What advice do you want to give them?
Well, my feeling was, judging from my own experience, was that as an undergraduate, it's good to get to a place where you will have the resources available, but also those small classes. The classes I do, if I have 20 students in the class, that's a lot. And so, I mean, I know these kids. I know them for 2, 3, 4 years. And I very often get to meet their families, which is also fun because they're very different when they're around their parents. All of a sudden they become kids, but that's okay. Then the parents leave, they become our colleagues again. But so I think the important thing is, for people to look at different schools, but feel comfortable that this is a social environment, a location, and also a size that you feel comfortable with. I think that's it. And you're going to change careers 5 times maybe in your lifetime at this point. Most people aren't going to come when they're a kid and stay 42 years. That's okay. That's okay.
Great. Well, thank you very much for coming.
It's been a pleasure, Anthony. Thank you for coming here.
Okay. So you've been watching The Secrets of College Planning. I'm your host, Anthony Uva. Until next time.